Thank you, everyone, for joining us for NC Cardinal's 10th annual report covering the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Here are some of the topics we're going to cover in this presentation: annual statistics, resource sharing, student access project, project activities and committee work, library migration, staff survey and support activities, as well as upcoming projects. Here's the Cardinal team. In this past year, Samantha O'Connor joined the team in February as our training specialist, and our project manager, Anna Peitzman, departed in June. So let's have a look at the year in review. This year, we had 3 new library systems join the consortium: Person County, Sampson Clinton Public Library, and Nantahala Regional Library. With the new additions this year, NC Cardinal is now in 61 counties, 4 municipalities, 7 special libraries, for a total of 210 branches throughout the state. Here's a look at active user accounts over the last 4 years. The total active users have continued to slowly decline. These numbers come from the public library statistics that we run each year and represent accounts that have expiration dates within the last 3 years. This is a 3% decrease in adult accounts, a 7% decrease in juvenile accounts, and an increase of 21% for student access accounts. Overall circulations rebounded this year after a 2-year dip, with an increase to 9.6 million checkouts. Looking at the circulation data in another way, here's the circulation figures for the last 5 years, with each library system shown as a layer sorted alphabetically from bottom to top. Cardinal's overall circulation counts are recovering to pre-pandemic levels, but these circulation counts include 9 new library systems that Cardinal added since the pandemic hit. Most individual libraries have not recovered to pre-pandemic circulation numbers. When we compare circulation stats for libraries that were part of Cardinal in fiscal year 18-19 to circulation for this past year, circulation is still down an average of 9% per library system. Here's a look at the outcome of hold requests placed throughout Cardinal in this past year. There were more than 1.3 million hold requests. Of all hold requests, 83% of them were filled and the items were checked out by the patrons. 5% of holds were canceled by staff and 4% were canceled by patrons. 3% have not yet been captured, and these include hold requests for things that may not yet be available due to age hold protection. 3% expired after sitting on the hold shelf, and 2% were pulled from the shelf but never checked out. This chart takes a look at all of the hold requests that were placed and eventually fulfilled, and where the material originated from. For this past year, 41% of holds that were filled came from resource sharing, compared to 35% the year prior and 36% the year before that. This 41% proportion of resource sharing source holds was in line with the 42% resource sharing fulfillment prior to the pandemic in fiscal year 18-19. It's interesting to see how 2021 had a jump of almost 20,000 filled holds, and 65% of holds that year were filled within the requester's library system. Here's the comparison of incoming and outgoing resource sharing transactions for each library system. In November of 2021, we abruptly discovered that the shared state contract we'd taken advantage of for resource sharing shipping through UPS had expired. The longstanding contract had been negotiated by an agency in Utah on behalf of a number of states. We had no warning that it was about to expire, and when it did, shipping rates with UPS rose significantly. Due to this, we had to pause resource sharing for a couple of weeks until we made arrangements to start using Fedex. We're still awaiting news of an updated UPS contract so that we can compare new rates with the rates of Fedex. And now we'll turn our attention to the Student Access Project. The Student Access Project continued to grow in this past year. Here's a look at individual student access transactions that have taken place since the program began in 2015. The brown line is a count of items checked out, and blue is a count of authentications for electronic resources. Some of the interesting aspects of this chart are the ebb and flow of activity across each school year, with the distinct drops for authentications over the winter holidays and summer, but the jumps in circulations of books over the summer. This past year, we had a total of 665,609 active student access accounts. This chart shows the counts of distinct student access users who checked out material or authenticated to make use of electronic resources since the program began in 2015. It's good to see the continued growing population of students making use of electronic resources. After a decline in users checking out materials in person last year, the numbers are recovering this year. Looking just at circulations, we can see how participation can ebb and flow for individual library systems, which are represented here by different colored bands. There are a total of 112,210 checkouts by 9,091 unique users, which is less than 0.1% of the total number of active accounts. Access to electronic resources was much more popular than checking out materials in person. There were a total of 206,104 authentications for electronic resources by 30,825 unique users, or 4.6% of the total active accounts. The average user logged in a little more than 6 times. And now we'll turn our attention towards some of the projects and activities that Cardinal undertook in the past year.
The Digital Signature project was a new feature that we pushed out for Madison and GHL. This added a digital signature text box to their patron self-registration form. This form checks the user's birth date, and if they're a minor, will require that their parent or guardian enter their name into the box. The digital signature is a user setting. That means any NC Cardinal patrons could have this set. On the pending patron page, staff must verify that the digital signature is accurate before submitting the form. We've pushed out the first part of our new password policies project. This new update creates reminders for staff to regularly update their passwords. We've put an alert on the staff splash page that will appear when the staff are within 1 week of having an old password. This alert will give staff instructions on how to update their passwords. On the user edit page, you can see how many days it has been since the user updated their password, or if they've never updated their password since migration. We're turning these features on in small batches of systems. We've created new email notices that will tell staff members every 76 days that they need to update their password. This is currently enabled for all branches. We landed on 76 days because we wanted to give users 14 days to change their password before the 90-day alerts would come. We've been working towards our goal of improving the holds targeter by inventing new ways to track the health of our holds process. Evergreen 372 introduced longitude and latitude to org units. This can only be used to sort holdings within the OPAC. However, we had the idea to use it to calculate how many miles materials were traveling. This was a process. We had the use of a free API to get longitude and latitude, but this was ineffective at getting the coordinates. It would often put coordinates miles away and sometimes couldn't find the building at all. The team ended up manually entering the coordinates in for most of our libraries. With that completed, I created new functions in the database that could be used to calculate the distance between any two libraries. Next, I created a database table that would store the shipping hub for each library system in the consortium. We can use this table with a hold request to get the distance between the source shipping hub and the destination shipping hub. However, we wanted the most accurate information possible. For libraries, such as those in the Outer Banks or the mountains, getting an as the crow flies distance wouldn't be good enough. So I created a new program that could calculate driving distances and populate a table in our database. In the future, we will modify the hold targeter to use these new database tables, but for now, we need to collect data to figure out our next steps. Last year, we created the hold audit table. This table recorded any changes that were made within a hold request during its life cycle. While this provided a lot of good data, it never told us why changes were being made. We could see that the target of a hold had been changed, sometimes for the worse, but we didn't have any information about what caused the change. This information wasn't being recorded or even reported anywhere in the code. So I went into the holds code and added the ability to know the user and workstation that caused the hold to reset. In addition to that, I was able to place statements in each location in the code a hold was reset and document the reason why, whether it was manually retargeted or automatically retargeted by the system. This information was recorded as hold notes, an often unused function of holds. When we pushed that code to production, we quickly found that there was an issue within the pull list. We had uncovered a glitch in Evergreen where the pull list would create a duplicate for each hold note that it found when it was pulling data. This meant that valid holds were being knocked off of the end of the list by the duplicates. We took action and removed the patch from production. Then I spent the next month planning and creating a more sustainable solution that wouldn't need to touch any existing elements in the database. This new patch stores the reset reasons in their own table in a much more organized format. We're using this data to get statistics about how frequently holds are being reset per system and per reason. Since 3.7.2, there have been a couple glitches that NC Cardinal has produced patches for. The first patch we made was to replicate the simple sort functionality in the Angular catalog. It had been removed during the transition to the Angular page. The simple sort function will put commonly used types like music, audiobook, and video at the top of the list. This has been designed to look and feel exactly like how it was in the old OPAC advanced search. The next issue we fixed was a more elusive one. Updating patron accounts was randomly failing with a confusing error message from the database. Blake found that the error was resulting from duplicate rows being created in the patron statcat entry table. So what I did was I created a patch that will limit which statcats show up on the patron edit page, and also change the process that updates the patron statcats to hopefully work around the issue.
In this past year, we continued to work with the patron account cleanup project that we kicked off in 2020. In the previous fiscal year, we inactivated 195,430 patron accounts, and this past fiscal year, we inactivated 118,600 patron accounts. Inactivating accounts prevents them from cluttering up the user search results. This past year in April, we kicked off the Library Settings project, which is a project to consult with member libraries to review their library settings. This project stemmed from the idea that the process we go through with migrating libraries to talk through Evergreen's variety of options may be useful for libraries that have been in Cardinal for a while. Participation is optional, and typically library systems nominate a few folks to review the various groups of settings that they have. The goals for this project are to clean up existing consortium-wide and system-specific settings, increase understanding of the available settings in Evergreen, and make sure that Evergreen is working the way that you want it to work for you. So far, we've worked with 9 library systems and have 20 more scheduled for the months ahead. In the past year, the User Experience Committee undertook a number of different projects, including review of Evergreen 3.7.2 before the upgrade in the fall. They also helped the Cardinal team to review the library settings sheets before we shared them with the larger community to make sure that they were understandable. Additionally, they helped to craft the staff password policy and drafted the policy for the Governance Committee to review. Thank you to all the members for their work this year, especially those rolling off of their terms: Shauna Bryce of Madison, Lisa Sheffield of Transylvania, and Shannon Hearn of Sandhill. New members of the User Experience Committee for the upcoming year include Cheryl Middleton of Buncombe, Nastasia Debnam of Perry, and Jamie Strobel of Forsyth. One of the things we're planning to work through are the suggestions offered in the annual staff survey. The Cataloging Committee worked on a few different projects this year, including the deduplication project in the spring. They also continue to be a source of expertise as we addressed issues on graphic novels, authority control, GMDs, mark templates, and item statuses. They also were very helpful during the training sessions for our new libraries that were joining NC Cardinal. Membership will remain the same in the year ahead, and we look forward to taking on several projects like a large print cleanup and improving the deduplication process. The deduplication process included a review of potentially matching bibliographic records and tweaking the criteria used to determine if records were duplicates, such as format, ISBN numbers, OCLC numbers, and that sort of thing. We ended up merging 65,737 duplicate bib records onto matching MARC records. Blu-rays, DVDs, and e-resources were not merged as part of the dedupe, but potential matches were identified as part of the Needs Humans list.
And now we'll turn our attention towards some of our projects and activities. The 2021 and 2022 migration season included Person County Public Libraries, Sampson Clinton Public Libraries, and Nantahala Regional Libraries, giving us a total of 61 counties, 4 municipalities, and 7 special libraries, and a total of 210 branches. These libraries added 331,830 new items to the shared catalog on 259,846 existing bib records, while adding 74,476 new bib records. They also added a total of 19,890 new active patrons to the consortium. The 2022 and 2023 migration season will include Duplin County Public Libraries, Holcutt Ellerton Memorial Library, Gibsonville Public Library, and Stanley County Public Library. Once the migration season has been completed, NC Cardinal will consist of 63 counties, 6 municipalities, 7 special libraries, and 224 branches. The Duplin County Public Library System includes 6 branch locations: Dorothy Whitman Library of Kenansville, the Philip Leaf Memorial Library of Beulahville, the Emily Hill Library of Faison, Florence Gallier Library of Magnolia, the Rose Hill Community Memorial Library, and Warsaw Carnegie Public Library in Warsaw. They are currently working on their migration process and are set to go live on August 18, 2022. The Gibsonville Public Library is set to go live December 8, 2022. The Holcutt Ellington Memorial Library is set to go live March 2nd, 2023. The Stanley County Public Library offers 5 branch locations in Albemarle, Locust, Baldwin, Oakboro, and Norwood. They also have a historic center location. Stanley County is set to go live on May 15, 2023. Now we'll turn our attention towards some of our projects and activities. Here's a look at the help tickets submitted to Cardinal over the course of the past year, broken down on a weekly basis. You can see that spring and summer are generally our busiest times for the team. This is a look at our ticket traffic these last 7 years. For a sense of scale, we saw a 50% increase in activity when the pandemic started, and we have not returned to a traffic level we were seeing before the pandemic.
Now let's take a look at the staff survey. The staff survey was open this year from June 7th through June 24th. We had a total of 226 respondents. Respondents were divided into question groups based on the type of role they perform in their library. So some of you answered questions about circulation activities, others about cataloging activities, and others about administrative activities. There were also a number of questions that were asked to everybody. We're just going to briefly look at what these responses were this year. So let's start with the comfort level of circulation activities in Evergreen. So this question was given only to those who indicated that they worked in a circulation role. And you can see that the areas with the highest overall levels of comfort were those check-in, check-out, patron search, printing receipts, and slips. And these are probably the areas that people use the most, so it makes sense that they'd be most comfortable with them. On the other end of the spectrum, we did see a very low level of comfort with offline mode and reports. And we're going to start working on some new documentation as well as some potential training opportunities in those areas over the next year. We'll also be rolling out the simplified reporter as part of our upgrade to the next version of Evergreen. So that may help with some of that comfort within the reporting function. One other point that I wanted to look at is that we did see a significant increase in comfort levels with the hold pull list. About 98% of those who work with this feature indicating that you were comfortable or very comfortable compared to 84% of you in 2020, which was the last time that we performed this survey. So we're really happy to see that increase, and we're hoping that we can continue to see other areas of comfort increase over the course of the next year, as well as to maintain that level of comfort with the hold pull list. All right, so let's look at comfort level with cataloging activities. So this question would have been asked to those of you who indicated that you work in cataloging. And one thing that I wanted to note is that both the holdings view and the item status screen indicated a 100% comfort level from those respondents who indicated that they work with these functions. So that is removing anyone who said not applicable to them. But if you remove those NA responses, then both holdings view and item status are entirely either comfortable or very comfortable. So that's excellent. We're really happy to see that. On the other end of the spectrum, we did see that the mark batch edit, the mark batch import export, and the reports are the areas with the lowest levels of comfort. So again, this is something that we really want to try to work on improving our documentation and training of over the course of the next year. Additionally, mark batch edit and mark import export both showed marked decreases from our 2020 survey. In 2020, 53% of respondents who worked with this function indicated that they were comfortable or very comfortable, compared to only 32% this year, and that's a 21% drop. So back in 2020, 63% of respondents who worked with mark batch import and export indicated that they were comfortable or very comfortable, and this is compared to only 47% this year. That's a drop of 15%. So we're really going to focus on developing some improved documentation and additional training in these areas in particular. If anyone has any further comments on the root of their discomfort, please feel free to reach out to me directly so I can work on tailoring the training towards the specific pain points with those functions that you're having. So the third area that was targeted towards specific staff duties was the administrative activities. So it's pretty clear that for those of you who responded to the questions about admin functions, the biggest area of comfort for you is in search preferences, with the lowest comfort levels being in work logs. Compared to the 2020 survey, though, we did see a 14% improvement in this area. So while there's still ways to go in getting everyone comfortable with those work logs, we are on the right track. So we'll continue offering some extra training and support on this function. Additionally, we saw a noticeable change in comfort levels with statistical categories, with about 64 of those who responded that they work with this function, indicating that they were comfortable or very comfortable with it. This represents a 12% increase from comfort levels with StatCats in 2020. So we're really happy to see this increase, and we're hoping to continue doing what we're doing to get those levels even higher. Let's move on to the questions that we asked of all respondents. So the first of these was about training and education mechanisms and looking for your preferences for those. In terms of the education mechanisms you all prefer, we do see a trend towards interest in online content, with the highest levels of preference being online webinars, YouTube videos, and knowledge book content. We will really be digging into developing or redeveloping a lot of our training mechanisms over the course of the next year. We're hoping that by this time next year, we'll be able to offer an increase in all of these online training options, as well as potentially a few others. So please keep an eye out for requests for further input on your training preferences. We also see in this survey that a lot of you were interested in connecting with other library staff within the Cardinal community, both online and in person. So this is a concept that has been discussed by the Cardinal team for a few years. As we return to more normal routines, that's a concept we hope to revisit. In terms of information sources, it looks like those of you who expressed an opinion on any of the sources indicated expressed a strong preference for knowledge books and for other NC Cardinal staff. So we will continue to work on making sure that the knowledge books stay up to date. We have been engaged in a project over the past few months to go back and just look for any areas that needed to be updated, and that first round of updates has been completed, but we'll be moving on to the next round, which goes a little bit deeper next. Another interesting aspect of the indication of preference for other NC Cardinal Library staff is that after removing those responses that indicated no opinion on this information source, it has the highest preference rating of all the sources, with 92% of you with an opinion indicating a preference for this information source. This represents a 10% increase since 2020. We're really excited to see the staff of the Cardinal Libraries really start to forge this communication network with each other. We've seen it on Basecamp, and we're really hoping to facilitate even more of this in the future. On the question of how satisfied you are with communications within NC Cardinal, it looks like there's fairly strong levels of satisfaction across the board, so we're very happy to see that. There were a few specific comments with suggestions for further improvement during the open answer portion of the survey, so we will continue working on implementing those over the course of the next year. Otherwise, we'll keep working to keep you all informed, and we always appreciate any feedback on where we can further improve. On the question of how satisfied you are with project endeavors this past year, this was the first year that we asked this question on the survey, and it looks like overall satisfaction levels are really high for those that do have an opinion. The only areas with notable dissatisfaction is with the OPAC redesign. Though most of you indicated general satisfaction with this project, we are reviewing the comments related to this during the open comment portion of the survey, and we do welcome suggestions for further improvements to the OPAC. Finally, the switch to Fedex is our last question, and it certainly seems to have generated some strong feelings. Though the majority of respondents expressed no opinion on Fedex, those of you who did have an opinion indicated the highest levels of satisfaction with the attitude of the drivers and the lowest level with Fedex as compared to UPS. So while the overall satisfaction level was actually fairly high across the board, we understand that compared to the service you received from UPS, many of you are relatively dissatisfied. We're continuing to monitor your feedback about Fedex and to consider other options, but thus far it doesn't appear North Carolina has signed on to a new UPS contract. We will continue to share information about this if anything changes from that. Now let's turn our attention to some upcoming projects.
The next phase of our password policy will increase the complexity required for staff passwords. They will be required to have an uppercase letter, lowercase letter, numeric character, and special character. Passwords must be at least 8 characters long. After a potential password passes through those first checks, it will be subjected to more advanced requirements. This code will check that the potential password doesn't contain parts of the user's data like their name or birthday. We'd also like to check the potential passwords for common dictionary words. With all that being said, we'd still like the patrons to be allowed to have simplistic passwords like 1234. We'll accomplish this by creating a map between permission groups, org units, and a password policy. This will allow us to have different password policies based on permission group. Now that we're gathering data with the hold audit and hold reset notes, we can start making changes to the targeter and see a quantitative effect on the data we're gathering. One of the changes we've discussed is freezing holds if their pickup library is closed when the initial hold request is made. That means that if a user places a hold on a Friday night, the targeter won't try to fill it until Monday. This could give staff the time that they need to make sure that the user gets the closest copy to them. Another change in the horizon is implementing the geo-sorting tools I talked about earlier into the hold targeter. This would allow the targeter to sort potential hold copies based on how far away they are from the pickup library. We're thinking about using the ChiliFresh software to increase the number of jacket covers in NC Cardinal. With ChiliFresh, we'd have access to over 30 million covers for all types of books and media. We'd also have the ability to upload jacket covers if they're missing.
We have a few other projects in mind for the year ahead, including a large print book cleanup project suggested by the cataloging committee. We also want to improve the deduplication process in our next go-round and involve catalogers in the process of cleaning up the records that need further human scrutiny. We're also looking at ways to improve our training content and opportunities, as well as possibly moving the cataloger assessments out of SurveyMonkey. Thank you for joining us for our annual report. The Cardinal team appreciates the opportunity to serve you and the people of North Carolina.